Hi, listeners. It's Alex Waters here, and this is about to be episode 4 of the Alex Waters Show. I'm really excited to be bringing this episode to you this week because it's actually the first time that I recorded in my new home studio, and I call it home studio. You can check it out on my Instagram. Set up a couch and got new mics and a bit of a lighting setup to film it as well. So I'll be loading this episode onto YouTube if you are a fan of consuming content that way. So you might notice the audio quality improve and hopefully it's better and easier listening for you. This week's episode is with Tracey Jewel, a really, really cool human being who I really admire. She's someone who's just consistently put herself out there in many different ways over the years and has had to face a lot of different hard challenges and is still just thriving through it all. And there's definitely a theme emerging with some of these episodes and some of the people I'm talking about. And I hope you're seeing those themes of what's possible. And yeah, but look, this conversation is a lot more relaxed and less of kind of an interview style and just really awesome conversation. So I'm not going to talk for any longer. I'll let you get into the episode. Here's episode 4 of the Alex Waters Show. Well, hello and welcome to the Alex Waters Show. I'm Alex Waters, obviously, and this is Tracey Jewel. So this is the first episode that I haven't actually prepared a script or a scripted bio. After the first 3 episodes released, I wanted to kind of relax a bit more with it and change the format. So right now we're in my new studio, which looks like my spare bedroom with a camera and a couch.
And some lovely plants.
Some plants, real ones, and some wine. And my trombone is over in the corner that no one can see in its case. And so Tracey and I have known each other for probably 7 or 8 years now.
Yes. Oh my goodness. It's been a while.
Yeah. Back when I was a 23-year-old in real estate is when we first got to know each other, and we're working at the same real estate agency.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to get Tracey on the show because you've had a really interesting journey for me. And I think your journey can be summarized as some of the stuff you've gone through, like other people will never scrape the surfaces of in their entire life experience. And here you are still thriving and living and just doing your thing, which I like. So
thank you. That's appreciated.
Yeah.
It feels like a few lifetimes thrown in the last 8 years, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It feels like more than one lifetime.
I feel that way for sure.
Yeah, you can relate.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a pretty hectic decade. So cool. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? Mm-hmm. Maybe pick up from where we met. And, at that point, you're the marketing manager at Crawford Property Group and I was in sales.
For 3 years.
Yeah. So you've had a pretty diverse range of careers and things that you've done, since then. So tell us about it.
Yeah. And I think as a starting point, I think we really resonated with each other and, the Crawford boys and quite a few of us, and why we've all stayed in touch through many different ups and downs is because we all had the same ethos in life. We all wanted to be of service and make an impact. And I think that is the connection piece that no matter what career I've had, I've always wanted to make an impact.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a participant in life rather than a spectator, right?
Yeah.
So I'll always give something a go, even if it doesn't work out.
Yeah. You're playing the game of life.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
And, I guess from a different lens looking in on that, it's been a crazy 8 years. I mean, I've chased opportunities. I feel like I was always chasing something that wasn't being fulfilled in my life for whatever reason, which led me, to big high profile relationships, which we'll go into, I'm sure, different careers, dabbling in different things, being entrepreneurial in spirit. And of course, married at first sight because, when a reality TV opportunity comes along, you go, why not?
Yeah. So you're saying if I get asked to go on Married at First Sight, I should go on it.
Debatable.
Yeah.
It's a 2-sided coin.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I mean, Take us back, like even further back before all that sort of stuff, because before we met, you were on Oprah.
I was.
Which is pretty fucking awesome, to be honest with you. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, and, as a 27-year-old getting to be a guest on the Oprah show at that age and, with youth, you don't even think that's possible.
Yeah.
And then when you achieve it, you go, okay, I've done that. What else is possible? Because when you achieve the thing that you never thought you could in a million years and it happens, you're like, anything's possible. And it changed my whole mindset on manifesting and possibilities and opportunities in life. Because at that stage, at 27, it's crazy. I'd just become a mum. I was married. I'd been in one relationship my whole adult life at that point. At that point, I was with my partner for like 6 years.
Right.
So it was a pretty normal life that was, suburbia and,
Where did you live?
Play dates and stuff. Well, South Perth, which was lovely.
Yeah.
I'm still a South Perth girl. But, if you looked in that world, it was just a mum, working part-time and just ticking all the boxes of what I thought life was about. But there was always this hunger for more.
Yeah.
I don't know if that came from being adopted and, growing up with just being a little bit different. And I always had this hunger for like achieving more in my life. And I was a big fan of vision boarding, as I know you're familiar with. And I put Oprah on my vision board because for me, that was like the epitome of achieving something.
Yeah.
Right? It was like living all out. Like if this was the best thing that could happen in my life, that was right up there.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you got there at 27.
Yeah, and I got there at 27.
So how did you actually make that happen? Like how did it come about?
Yeah, so I didn't, again, vision boarding isn't attaching to an outcome. It's just putting it out there and letting the universe bring it to you. So that, again, I wanted to test myself on the absolute ultimate of happening. I put it on my vision board. I had put it in my scope, and it's so funny because I reached out to Oprah to buy tickets just to be in a show. That was really like, okay, if I didn't reach this goal, the top goal, what would be the second goal? Well, just to be, an audience member would be pretty cool. So I put that out there and I won tickets to her show. And then because I shared with the producers that I was coming all the way from Australia just to sit in on a show in Chicago, they found a way to actually add me into one of their shows.
Wow.
Right? So it went from plan B to like my plan A.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think something I take away from that is that you never know where the next step is going to take you.
Yes.
Like, I have a lot of conversations with people who haven't yet started the thing that they want to do because they don't know exactly what it's going to be, or maybe they think that they're not there yet. But actually, there's been so many times in my life where just by taking a step in any direction has led me to the next step and the next step, which
and
eventually
it's better than no step, right?
Exactly. It's taken me to that place of like the ultimate thing that I wanted to experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's like the old saying is, if you shoot for the moon, you'll at least land among the stars.
Yeah, I love
right?
that. Yeah.
So, you know what? It's not being attached to the absolute outcome, but you have to energetically back yourself, right? I believe in intention and energy. And it's not about achieving it or not. And if you don't, it's a big failure because you learn something, but it's putting it out there. Yeah. Right? And backing it no matter what happens and not being attached to the outcome. And you know what? I would have been happy just sitting in the audience.
Yeah.
And like, how can something that big not affect your life, right?
Yeah.
A lot of blessings came out of it. I got a whole different career. I got to travel Australia, launch a book, but then that didn't match other areas of my life, like my marriage.
Yeah.
I was a completely new identity.
Yeah.
So I ended up, we ended up getting divorced because it just wasn't a match anymore. And that was a really hard decision to make because once those doors are open, you can't just shut them again and go back to life the way it was. It's never going to be the same. Yeah. So I had to keep, going through the open doors. And unfortunately, the relationship it wasn't a match. For either of us.
You can't unsee what you've seen.
100%. Yeah.
And so what is your belief then about relationships and, are we meant to be with one person forever? Like how do we...
You're talking to someone that's now been married twice.
Okay.
And well, you know, if you
Married
count
and
maths,
divorced twice?
yeah.
Oh, was that
if
you're
you count
counting
maths
that?
as one of the
Right.
marriages, yeah.
Wasn't a legal contract.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but you know, I'm a girl and I like the romanticizing of that, but I think we have soul contracts with people.
Uh-huh.
So everyone we're with, we're meant to be with, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're meant to be with them for the rest of our life. And sometimes I think our soul contract, we stay a little bit longer than we should because of, you know, fear of failure or not wanting to leave or codependency or
attaching to the idea that this person is something to us that, you know, they've got to be, because Disney's fucked everyone up. So
yeah, with the Prince Charming.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think my current belief is that it's, you know, it is almost improbable or highly improbable for two people to continue to evolve and stay completely true to themselves on their own path and grow and stay aligned together forever.
Yeah.
And, you know, perhaps...
But some people can.
Some people can. It's for sure. It's possible.
Yes.
But I mean, I suppose just thinking out loud here is like, maybe that marriage and the commitment to marriage is actually not about that. It's kind of about something different. And that's why you hear about people in marriages having seasons and that sort of thing, and why people in their 60s start swinging, because, you know, they're just like, hey, we're still married, but, you know, we're just going to do our own thing.
Yeah,
right?
100%. And like, there's no rules. It's whatever makes you happy and your partner happy.
Yeah.
And but I think regardless, just like the Oprah thing I shared, you have to energetically back it. No one goes into a relationship thinking it's going to be over in a year or with an exit date or, you know, because that will never work.
Yeah.
I think you still have to go into it with an open mind of not knowing how long it will go on for, but without attaching to it being the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, it's just never, ever going to work from the get-go.
Yeah. So what are the signs for you then that something's meant to end?
Well, you know, we all have bad days, right? And we all have peaks and troughs in our life. And I think, you know, it's not giving up too quickly in a relationship. I'm very loyal and I give it 110%, but it's when it's consistently, you know, not fulfilling you or not fulfilling the other person. Because even if you're happy and they're not, who are we to make someone else unhappy to stay with us as well? It goes both ways.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're with the right person, you want both of you to be happy and fulfilled and growing individually and together. So when that stops happening for a prolonged period of time, that's the big red flag for me.
Yeah.
But we have periods of relationships where that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's that fine balance between not jumping the gun too soon.
Yeah. There's definitely, I think a lot of people hold an expectation of, you know, this sort of everything needs to be perfect all the time. And then as soon as a rocky moment hits, like the whole thing's fucked. And, you know, either that or like the world's ending, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think life gets easier when you let go of things needing to be perfect, just in general.
Absolutely.
But for sure in relationship. And it just lets things be as they are. And, you know, as long as you have your boundaries and you're self-aware and emotionally aware about what's going on and where you're kind of comfortable to sit, it's kind of like riding the wave of life.
You have to compromise. That's what relationships are.
Yeah.
But it's like, what are you willing to compromise and what are you not? And that's boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's, again, the balance between the two.
Mm.
You're not perfect. So how can you expect to find a perfect partner?
Yeah.
I'm annoying as hell.
Yeah.
And I'm very intense at times. And my partners have to compromise with that. So if I'm expecting them to compromise on those parts that I know in my shadow side aren't the best, then surely I have to compromise too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It can't all be one way.
Yeah. Someone told me I'm intense the other day and I was like, what?
Oh,
Really?
really?
Not
Not at all. You're a larrikin.
Not in a bad way. I was just like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I suppose I'm pretty intense sometimes.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you talked about maths before, Married at First Sight. That was obviously, a few years ago now?
2 years, yeah.
Just 2 years, yeah. So pretty big experience, you know, blown up on TV around Australia, people loving you, hating you.
Everything in between.
Yeah. It's, you know, tell us about it. And sorry, just before I ask that question, I Googled you before the show, as I do with everyone I interview. And most people, kind of comes up with their Facebook profile, a few images, and like maybe a thing that they did like last year or whatever. Yours was like story after story after story after story, like Married at First Sight,
cringe.
Tracey Jewel, ex-partner, blah, 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 just like gossip columns and stuff like that. So tell us about that whole experience. What caused you to say yes to it? How do you feel about it now?
Yeah, so one of the things is, I think for anyone going on reality TV, it's like an escapism. We watch it to escape and people go on it to escape.
Right.
And for me, I wasn't happy in my life and I didn't apply for it, but the opportunity came, through Facebook, funnily enough, to apply. And I thought, why not? Because I wasn't happy. And again, I wasn't attached to it. I wasn't like, this is something I must do. It was one of those, I don't know, universal connection vibe things that I just was led along that path. And before you know it, I'm picking out a wedding dress and getting married to a stranger. As weird as that sounds, it wasn't a lot of forethought to it. So I didn't really think it through.
Cool.
I guess all the aftermath of what was going to happen aftermath. So I didn't really think through the consequences of doing it.
Sure.
I just thought, you know what, not happy with my life. This is a great experience that's going to, again, like Oprah, propel me into another world and open different doors.
Yeah. So you talk about you didn't think about the aftermath, and obviously from knowing you, I know kind of somewhat of your personal experience of what you went through, and anyone just like Googling you can figure it out. Like you were written about a lot and, still are, and kind of put under the spotlight, I suppose. But do you think, well, first of all, it'd be great if you can describe what that was like for you. And then secondly, has that adversity been a positive experience looking back at it now?
Oh, good question. Yeah, it was... I mean, after you film it for 3 months and you're in a bubble and no one knows who you are when you're filming it. So that was fine. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But coming out of that bubble after filming, knowing what you've done, being filmed, I was quite happy with, you know what, I was myself. I stand by everything I did on the show. I was in a good place.
Yeah.
And then it hit television. And then, everyone knew who I was instantly. I'll never forget, after probably the wedding episode, so 1 or 2 episodes in, I was in Coles with my daughter and I'm already on the cover of the magazines and my daughter's pointing at them, yelling at the top of her lungs, "That's my mum." And I was like, oh my goodness,
so good.
like I cannot go out anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that was the aha moment that hit me, like, holy crap, what have I got myself into? And it's too late at this point.
Yeah.
It's happening. And I had to learn to adjust very, very quickly.
So what, you were bombarded by people in public?
Yeah,
like, tell us
everywhere.
about, yeah?
So, you know,
fully, like asking for autographs or what?
Yeah. I could not walk down the street without someone yelling my name or recognizing me or wanting a photo. And then to top it off, when I got home, because I was having to do the media campaigns and the radio, I'd be in the car and I'm on the radio on a pre-recorded interview. Like with MAFS, it's such a big juggernaut of television. There's no escaping it. Maybe for other reality TV, it's a little bit less, but it was everywhere.
Because the most watched show in Australia, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. I reckon a lot of people fantasize about what it would like to be famous. Yeah. And you can't, I mean, that's about as big as fame gets in Australia, let's be honest.
At the time, yeah.
Maybe, like movie stars, Hugh Jackman, etc. That's a little bit bigger. But I suppose the fantasy is not necessarily always as good as the reality, right?
Yeah, and this is the thing, like in that, for a good 9 to 12 months until the next season, like it was constant. paparazzi outside my house, stalkers.
No.
I got photographed for the West Australian buying a cooked chicken for my lunch one day, and that was like a story,
No,
right? I'm
really?
not kidding you. It was
Really?
it was almost embarrassing because it's like, how is this news? Like, this is just my life.
Yeah.
And you're right. When I was thrown into it, I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this is what it feels like. Like, I wanted to go to an Every Woman Expo, you know, the one in Perth. And I had to have a security guard because I could not walk around on my own because there were so many people wanting to talk to me. Like,
Really?
it's weird to say that without the ego attached to it, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
it sounds good. But do you know how scary it is? Like, you have to have a security person with you
Yeah.
to go there.
Yeah.
It's weird, right?
It's weird.
So I'm like, how long? And I was worried. Like, I'm like, now I've had it. I don't want it.
Yeah.
Like, it was fun for a few months. Then I got over it.
Where did you go to get privacy
I went
besides your house? But like,
yeah. So I couldn't go to a cafe without a friend waiting for me. I couldn't just sit there on my own. I couldn't go to the shops on my own. So
because people would approach you.
I'd have to have a tribe with me at all times. And then I went overseas because, you know, it aired on television from January to April 2018. By July, I'd had enough and literally went to Europe for 2 months to get
Right.
away.
Cool.
Yeah, I reached my limit.
No one there was a huge.
But
Did you
how's
get
this?
recognized?
I
there?
did
Yeah.
on the aeroplane and at the Vatican in Rome. Someone wanted a
No.
selfie with me, and I'm
Really?
like, "It's the Vatican!
That's
like,
so good.
why do you want a selfie with me when we're literally at the Vatican?" It was very funny.
That's awesome. Cool.
Random.
I love that. So in hindsight, then, do you feel that challenge and the level of adversity that you faced with that, has been a positive experience for you?
Yeah, looking back, I am so resilient now, and I've given up the need for validation or for people to like me.
Yeah.
And that was a big core issue in my life, is wanting
Yeah.
to be liked by everyone, wanting to be a people pleaser. And when you're in such a bigger platform, you can't survive with that mentality.
Yeah.
And that's what almost broke me and caused a lot of anxiety and mental health issues for me, because there's no way you can keep that facade up.
Yeah.
So I had to adapt and change, and I had to find a way to get over that.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm so resilient, and I know who I am more than ever. And now it's my choice whether what I share with people and what I don't. I don't have to share everything. Before, I always felt this need, to share all parts of myself with everyone without
Sure.
the boundaries.
Yeah.
And now I don't. And now I'm okay
until
with that.
until this podcast. Yeah.
Until I don't answer a question. but
Oh, okay.
I'm
Wow.
joking.
Yeah. I love that. And I remember the last time we caught up, because you were also one of my 100 coffees.
Yeah.
Because even though I knew you, we'd actually never really connected one-on-one or as friends. So when we caught up, I remember that was a huge thing for me at the time, and it still kind of felt like it was lingering for you a little bit as well. And I do just really agree with you that, when people literally hate on you, like are saying stuff about you that you're like, oh, that actually hurts. Like, are you trying to bring me down and hurt me right now? You're saying I'm a bad person for this or whatever. It forces you to, if you want to survive and thrive, you have to go within and like get to know yourself even better than you did before.
Yeah.
So much so that you build a strong enough position in who you are from your center in all the way out to be like, okay, that's cool. I actually get that that's just your opinion. It may not even be your opinion. You might just be saying it because you're hurting right now,
Yeah.
or you want to create a story in the media or whatever it is. So.
But you have to because it's normal and natural to be triggered and
Yeah.
want to fix that, because no one wants to be hated.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like our defensive mechanisms
Yeah.
coming in. But then when you start to look at it and realize it's not personal, and you don't have to do anything and you don't have to fix it, and it doesn't make you less of a person just because someone doesn't agree with you or hate on you, it changes your mentality. And I think that's the key to resilience. Is it's almost like using that as fuel rather than triggering you. You use it to build you up even more.
Yeah. I had a realization recently that And this might have come from meditation or just like a journey with mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms, which I do fairly frequently. And I had a realization that hate actually doesn't exist at the core of anyone.
Yeah.
That is at least something I feel to be true.
Yeah.
That every single human being, if they sit with themselves in silence, they can find and experience a place within inside them, which is the only part of themselves that they know and no one else knows. And that part holds no hate towards anyone.
Yes.
So,
at our core.
At our core.
Yes, 100%.
So it's almost like hate's not a real emotion. It's a creation of or holding on to.
Hate comes from fear, right?
Yeah.
It's a projection of fear.
Exactly.
But fear is vulnerable. Hate isn't.
Yes.
So it's easier to hate than be vulnerable and share what you're afraid of.
Yeah. Good call. Love that. Yeah.
Well, because when you get so much hate and cyberbullying and attacking, A, it's hard not to take it personally, and B, I do reflect, okay, what would actually make someone want to send a hateful message, right? What's going on for them? And then when you start to look at it and remove yourself from the situation and empathetically look at the causes of someone sharing that, that's when you go into that inner core work, right? Where they're not a hateful person.
No, and no one whole inside ever felt the need to bring someone else down.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think those are all really pertinent and resonant messages right now for me and for a lot of people. So,
and I think especially with, COVID and COVID anxiety and all these labels we throw around, whenever you're in scarcity or fear, it's so much easier to live in that negative vibration and want to project that as hate or whatever, because that's a lot of heavy emotion to sit in. So you need to get it out, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard to shift that all on your own if you don't have the tools like meditation or whatever you do, to help yourself out of those shadow spaces.
Yeah.
For me, it's mindfulness and golf that gets me out of those spins.
Cool. Yeah. For me, daily, it's swimming in the ocean,
nice
meditation. I just went and skated on my electric skateboard before, like that sort of thing. Yeah.
Because all that negative energy has to go somewhere, right?
Running.
So you have to find an outlet, right? Yeah. Sex, whatever. You have to find an outlet to get it out, 100%.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about negative energy during sex right now. How to take that out. That's going to be one of Tracey's next podcasts, I'm sure. So
oversharing.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed on Google is within the articles, I mentioned this before, a theme of like you being linked to ex-partners and just constantly linked to ex-partners.
Yeah.
As a woman, and you're the first woman that's come on the show so far. So my thinking was like, I don't think that happens to men. So what's
one
that?
way, right?
Yeah, like what's that like?
And I'm so glad you brought this up because like even before maths, we're not going to name names, but I've dated a lot of high profile men.
Yeah.
And everything is about them.
Yeah.
And I think for me, maybe one of the, at the time, unconscious and now conscious reasons I chose to be on maths is because I wanted to do something that was all me, not in the shadow of a guy I was dating, right? And maths, again, turned out to be, I was in the shadow of Dean.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a side note. And with women, it was all like what I was wearing or am I a money grabber or gold digger or whatever you want to call it, rather than focusing all the things I've actually done on my own. And that's a bit of a hard one to navigate and again, not take personally. This is just the media and what they choose to pick and things. But it's also from going back in hindsight, looking at all my male choices and things, I've made a completely different choice in my current relationship. I've actually done the complete opposite because of that.
Yeah.
Because if I'm really honest, I did feel like they were on a pedestal to me. Like they were better than me for whatever myriad of reasons.
Yeah.
And that's very much reflective in the media.
So why is that?
strong daddy issues. No, no, but I've always had strong men in my life.
No, I mean,
yeah.
why do you think it's portrayed like they are portrayed in that way? Why do you think the media wants to portray women in the way that they portray you?
You're talking about decades and decades of sexism, right? And
Yeah.
feminists.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to Google like Sam Armitage for the Today Show, or, you know, all these beautiful journalists and news reporters that I've had the privilege of being interviewed with since MAFS. And when they cover a story, it's all about how they wear, what they wear, not actually what they're covering. But a male would never be projected on what they're wearing ever.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? It's this underlying...
As in, you mean, so there's a reporter, you know, they're covering a big story and someone crosses to them and they're like, oh, you're wearing a beautiful dress
Correct.
today. Like that those sorts of comments. And
Exactly. And politicians too.
Yeah.
And celebrities.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one, right? Because I think society appreciates that aspect of the feminine and femininity, and kind of like, of course that doesn't happen with men because it's not like that flair and the kind of out there thing, unless you're talking about models and stuff they're wearing. But it's almost like you've got to change the narrative for a while just to change the conditioning behind it and the context of it for then the same content to be viewed differently.
Yes. And the thing is, when you see that type of content, like if you read those articles, it's like I'm a handbag. You start feeling like that's your identity.
Yeah.
I actually started to adopt, not that I had it before, and embody, if they're saying it, then I must be the handbag. And I started belittling myself because of what I was reading. So I think it's this vicious circle between the judgments and projections and then what we think about ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think it needs to change from both sides.
Yeah. What's the answer?
Well, for me, you know, it was doing a lot of belief work around being equal, even if equal is different. So, you know, feminist work isn't an empowerment work for women, isn't about being equal in all areas of life, but it's being treated equally.
Yeah.
And that's a different intention.
So if I can pick up what I think you're saying and add to it, is that women from a young age, females, girls from a young age, are almost conditioned in this way.
Yes.
And that the way that you are being portrayed, you know, to everyone around Australia represents how women are conditioned, and therefore it's like it starts with them standing up and kind of from themselves pushing away that conditioning.
Yes.
And standing up for who they are and what they believe in, and
then that being navigated and shown and displayed in media and social media as well. So then the cycle can stop, but it starts with us first, right?
Yeah, of course. Okay. Well,
and, you know, because I have a daughter, I really encourage independence in her because of the lessons I've learnt. And getting her to think without giving her all the answers all the time, getting her to free think and be creative and come up with solutions first on her own, and be more of a role model and guide her rather than tell her everything, because I think that's part of the conditioning. Is if you're told something enough, you start to believe it. Yeah.
And it's the same for men as well, just a different conversation. You know, it's all about stop listening to the narrative of what you should be, who you should be, and start...
It's the same, right?
Yeah, start listening to yourself, your inner guidance, all of that kind of stuff.
Correct. And like my daughter, you know, loves AFL football. She just is obsessed about it, plays it, and it's about choosing whether it was ballet or football, but it's her choice that she gets to make. And that's an example of creating your own narrative for men or women. You have a right to live the narrative of your life that you want to live, whatever that is. Yeah. Right? And that's what one of the things, and you have Atlas, your little boy. I think that's the thing as a parent, is you want to instill that those options are available to them. Whatever they choose to decide, whatever they want to do in their life, they can do it, right?
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me anyway.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, Atlas is 14 months old, so he's not choosing much for himself
No.
yet. But I actually did
But
see
I'm
him.
sure you have this vision for him, right?
As far as like what I think he should do in his life.
Yeah. Or like that he has the option to do what he wants in his life.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't have a fixed assertion of what I think he should do or who he will be. And I think for me that the looseness around that comes from the fact that at 30 years old, one of the most interesting things I find about myself is who I am versus who I thought I'd be.
Yeah.
like polar opposites. I have bleach blonde hair. Some of the stuff I've done in my life is pretty crazy. Just like all the different experiences and myriad of experience I've allowed myself to have on many different levels are not what I thought my life would be.
But lived experience is so powerful, right?
Exactly. And I'm 30 and I'm separated. I'm a single dad. Like there's all these things and I think with age, 30 years, I kind of have realized that we really don't have much control over this ride.
Yeah.
Or when we try and hold on tighter, it's when,
But also we could miss out on so much.
Yeah.
Like doing what's expected of us or, ticking the boxes. You're missing out on so much experience. And, I'm turning 38 this year and I didn't think I'd be back with my high school boyfriend, looking at having another baby and doing this whole cycle over again, and everything that's led me to this point. Like as a 20-year-old, I had no idea but I wouldn't change it for the world, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can't, so.
Yeah, so why even waste the energy on it?
Exactly. So I want to share, a big thing for me in this podcast is helping people understand that they're capable of so much more. And I think a lot of that has to do with showcasing how different people have handled adversity in their life. So we've kind of touched on that a little bit, but I wanted to dive into it a little bit more. What do you think is like the single most challenging thing you've experienced in your life, and where did it take you within yourself, and how did you navigate it?
Yeah. Okay. One of the biggest things was going bankrupt, 100%. And this is recent, so, I'm still navigating this, but the identity shift that created for me was one of the challenging things I've ever been through. It was such a hard one because something we don't talk about money and finances. Well, in my family, we didn't. And I always considered myself quite a wealthy, abundant person. So it was completely against all my mindset of what led me to the steps that led to my bankruptcy.
Right.
And it was like a lot of inner work that I had to take responsibility for. And regardless if it's divorce or losing a job or any big life moment change, to be able to look in and not put the blame on, well, this person did this to me and this person made me bankrupt, for example. I had to actually go, well, you know what, and take responsibility for all the things that led me and all the steps to what led me to there. And that was really, really hard.
Yeah.
But from that, I've built so much resilience because being at like a rock bottom in that area of my life and bouncing back from that to more than I was even before the bankruptcy is incredible. And what it does is I like to talk about it in the window of tolerance, it's called. And again, it's any big life-changing moment. Is we all have a window of tolerance, and then the shit hits the fan, I'm swearing, whatever the shit is, and it either forces us to contract our window of tolerance, and then we become very fearful and very scarce, or it forces us to expand our window of tolerance.
Sure.
So then we can handle things at a whole nother level.
Yeah.
So I contracted, not going to lie, for quite a little bit after that.
Yeah.
As I, was trying to rebalance and realign myself. But then if I really wanted to still believe and have the vision of the life I still held for myself that seemed so far away at that point, I had no choice but to expand that window of tolerance.
Yeah.
Because the life I wanted does not work and fit into this little tiny window, right? It just isn't going to work.
The theme that I experience through myself and through people like yourself and people who I talk to is that they all have something compelling pulling them out of the worst case scenarios.
Yes.
So it's the vision for themselves in their life.
Because the reality wasn't it.
Yeah, that's right. So that's, I've experienced exactly the same. Like through my worst times of adversity, the only way I got through the hardest times is, and it's a struggle. Like you're depressed, you're anxious, you're waking up sad, miserable, depressed. I've said that already.
Yeah. No, but your current reality sucks.
It sucks. Like it's fucking hard. Yeah. But you're like, I am not okay with being here forever. And I know that in my mind, where I want to be is not that. And so I have to change. I have to do what it takes internally and externally to change this situation and continue to grow. And it all starts internally. And as you said,
it's
facing
self-responsibility, right?
Responsibility, extreme ownership.
You have to own it.
Yeah.
You really do. And if you can't own your crap, then it's almost like universally you don't have the right to own the good if you can't own the bad.
Yeah. It's a very humbling experience.
It is.
Like facing off with yourself and the worst parts of yourself.
Yeah.
Like I made decisions that landed me here.
Yeah.
But
it also means I can make decisions to create a new possibility.
Yeah.
Because when you own what took you somewhere, you can also own different steps to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And then when you look at examples, like for me, when I was really in the crap, I had to look at inspiring mentors and examples when you're really down and low and you sometimes lose your vision. Sometimes it's really needed to look elsewhere. So like, for example, Louise Hay, the owner of Hay House, she started that in her 50s. And Harry Potter's author, mind blank.
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, J.K. Rowling. She was a single mum on welfare.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need to look at not similar, but examples that are really inspiring of people that have got out of it to still believe that it's possible when you're really in the dark.
Yeah. So that's, that's your advice then to people who may be listening, may be experiencing this right now or going to in the next few years or whatever. Yeah. Just remember to look for inspiration elsewhere when you can't find it within yourself and, create that vision, hold on to it. And
and one step at a time.
Yeah. Like
I still always held on to a vision that at that point was 5 years away and I achieved it in 2, which was amazing. But it was not getting caught up in it's so far away, because if you always think, oh, that's like so many years away, it'll always be so many years away.
Yeah.
You just have to take, even if it's small little actions, all the little actions add up.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you're out of it and you look back on it and it feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. My screensaver on my phone says the path to greatness is simple, one step at a time.
Yes.
And I think that's just the best advice is like, just keep taking one step at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I love that. So, let's get on to co-parenting, because you and I both co-parents. And, I think I want to preface this conversation or part of the conversation by saying that, it is can be an immensely challenging experience for both parties involved. This will be interesting because I'm a dad and you're a mum.
Yeah.
So we've got the two opposite sides of perspective, perhaps.
We do.
So how old's your daughter again?
She's 10 now.
10.
But she was, when we separated, she was 2.5. So only a little bit older than Atlas when we first separated.
Yeah. And so what's the journey been like for you, and, where is it now?
Yeah. So again, it's ebbs and flows. I'm not going to say it was all bad for a little while, then it went really good. It's up and down consistently over the last 8 years.
Yeah.
And it's a journey, and there's times where we really get along and there's times when we don't. And it's one of these things that I think I love mindfulness. Mindfulness makes you accept your reality, even if you don't like it. You can accept it, but you don't have to like it.
Yeah.
But if you can come to a place of acceptance that, you know what, we are always going to be bonded, me and my ex, with our child.
Yeah.
Whether I like that or not, that's the reality. And the sooner I come to acceptance of that, then we have almost like, again, a soul contract. And when you can start to come from that place that even if you don't agree with their parenting style or their new partner or whatever's going on in their world that you're not a part of anymore, if you don't have to like it, but if you can accept it, that's a really nice foundation rather than one of like bitterness or regret or any other emotions.
Yeah.
So whenever I have a conversation around co-parenting, I try and come from a place of that acceptance.
Yeah. I think for me, it's been the single most humbling experience of my life. And like it's a constant death of the ego.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is like just having to put aside my own personal opinions and desires in order to have harmonious communication and do what's best for my son, which ultimately is to have harmonious communication and make good decisions for him. I hear that a lot from other co-parents as well. It just is that, because ultimately the relationship didn't work for a reason.
Yeah.
If you're fortunate to be in a situation where you were best friends and you just parted ways and you still love each other and but you're great. Fuck, like you're amazing.
Yeah.
I think it takes two amazing people to be in that situation.
Yes. That's what we aspire for.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I kind of think about it like this now, is that marriage in and itself and the construct of marriage is a form of, ultimately it was created as a form of control.
Yeah.
Like we're going to marry you off to this, rich family. They're going to form an estate. Like that's how it started years and years, centuries ago. So if that's not the case and we're not married, we're not together and I don't have control and, my ex or my son's mother doesn't have control over me either.
Yes, it goes both ways.
Exactly. You just have to choose to let go, but it's constantly letting go.
Yes,
because
that's the thing.
There's constantly new things and new variables that you're
so
faced
to say,
with.
oh, you go through a rough patch and then it's great, that's not always the case. Sometimes it happens. It is constant changing, constant pivoting, and not only is one family changing, you've got two families changing, trying to come together for your child.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the hard bit to navigate. Whereas I said, if you come from a place of acceptance, even if you don't like the choices they're making for their family,
Yeah,
you do have to accept them for the sake of your child. So again, compromise is one of the keys, I think.
Yeah. What's been some of the hardest experiences that you've had?
Well, him getting remarried quite quickly.
Yeah.
That was a massive one. She had other children, then they had children together. So then we have dynamics of extra siblings.
Yeah.
That was hard to navigate. And because I, was single, as a mum, I wasn't actually the family unit. Her family unit, because of the siblings and the marriage, that was actually her family unit, not me.
Yeah.
And I had to do a lot of inner work to realize that didn't take away the fact I'm always going to be her mum. And it maybe wasn't the normal society of a mum, should be the sole provider and sole carer, because that isn't the case in our situation. But that doesn't make me any less of a mother.
Yeah. The kid knows as well. Like children know who their dad and who their mum is. But I mean, man, I through some personal journeys and meditation and stuff like that, I've had experiences, where in the journey I've gone into an experience where I've had to face a new dad being in the picture, right? A stepdad for Atlas. And it's incredibly confronting because for me, in my situation, and he's only 14 months old right now, so eventually the plan is that we'll have equal shared custody or shared care, whatever they call it now. But for right now, I have him kind of 4 days, 4 nights, a fortnight. So if there was, if his mother was to repartner and get serious and move in with someone and all that kind of thing, then actually there's a potential right now for there to be another man in Atlas's life and have a greater influence on him from a time perspective, as in experiencing him more than I am.
Yes. But I can also say, because I have my daughter 5 nights a fortnight since we divorced, and 50-50 in school holidays.
Yeah.
So, a considerable amount of time, but it's not equal amount of time. And if I focused on the equality of it, I'm missing out on so much to be able to impact her, even though she's not with me.
Yeah.
And I think from someone a little few years down the line from you, and being in your shoes when Grace was only 2.5, I think it's really important that it's quality over quantity, and you will always have influence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the place I came to in that journey, and the realization was that actually growing up, my dad wasn't probably necessarily the biggest male influence in my life because of the nature of our relationship and the context of that. I clearly remember seeking out other male role models, whether it be through teachers or whatever else. And and the reality is, as soon as they go to school, their teachers are more in their life than you potentially anyway. Yeah. So
anyone can be an influence. Well, my nan was if I look back and say, who was my biggest influence growing up? It was my nan, not my parents. Yeah. And that's not anything to do with how much time my parents spent with me, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I think for me, the place I got to, because the goal was peace, and peace and acceptance of what may be, is that just really trusting that whoever is in Atlas's life is there for a reason, and letting go of kind of that possession really of your
that
child.
Control, yes.
Possession of him and wanting to be this for him, to him, and me attaching to how I should be for him as a dad, and trusting that actually he does get an incredible amount of quality time with me. And I may not be the biggest influence in his life, But
you might not be that anyway.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I meant. I might not be that anyway. Yeah. So it's just his life. It's his journey.
Yeah.
I've just kind of got to be here, witnessing, experiencing, supporting, almost on the sidelines, but sometimes playing on the field with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's a balance.
I think that's my mentality now, and it feels, it kind of feels good to be there, or here at his age already.
It's a good place to be so soon. It took me ages to get to that place. Yeah. And what is a big aha moment when I put my ego aside is actually my daughter's stepmother has traits and qualities that I just don't have.
Yeah. Right?
And even just saying it, sometimes I'm like, oh, that's tough to say, but it's the truth. And how much more well-rounded and how much more support does my daughter have with traits and qualities that I could, let's be honest, never give her that she can, and vice versa.
I think vice versa. I think that's exactly vice versa. But I think that's that is like the single most triggering thing about the whole situation is
still cringy
that in that journey of experiencing what I've just shared is like, I can see that man has qualities that I don't have, and it's incredibly triggering because it's like, of course that was going to fucking happen. And, it just hits all your insecurities of like what you aren't. And you just got to kind of come back to your center and realize what you are. And you have no control anyway. So just let it go.
I'm the mum
that's me talking to myself.
Yeah. And as I'm having this conversation, it's like cathartic, right? Yeah. It's like self-soothing.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man. Well, I think we could talk a while on co-parenting. Yeah. But, it's a journey for sure. As I'm sure it is for everyone out there who's a co-parent and in that experience. And you know what? This kind of relates to this, but actually being in relationship with someone is hard anyway. So, it's like if you're not in relationship or your relationship changed, you're a co-parent. If you're in a monogamous relationship with someone and, you have a child together, that's fucking hard. That takes a lot of work and energy. So
Yes.
you're not together, the same thing applies.
Yes. It's still a relationship,
exactly.
right? That you have to navigate and find a way through it and communicate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you're doing now, because we as I said earlier, you've kind of had a pretty diverse range of career options and what you do. And I really like that. I think there's probably a few people out there who are afraid to switch and, make that mean something about them. But you haven't obviously been afraid to do that.
Yeah, I've never been afraid of taking risks with my career, because if you keep moving forward, if something doesn't work, you can always keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Right? There's always options. And I think in a career that's easier to do than other areas of life. Yeah. Right? So it's kind of like my dabbling. But it's funny because I've actually gone full circle. After maths and I had some time out, I went back and studied and decided, okay, what do I really want? Because everyone had judged me, it was almost like, well, because everyone's judging me anyway, I'm just going to do what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing to come to that place because I always did feel judged for all these different career choices I'd made, or self-judgment. I'm like, you know what? People are going to judge anyway. May as well just go for it. So now I'm back working in marketing, which I love, for the company I was at before maths part-time. And because I like to dabble, I like my stability, part-time, and then that gives me the opportunity for the other part-time hours to do what I love to do, which is speaking and writing books and doing things like this and connecting and opportunities and just playing in a lot of different fields.
And you're doing Healy, which is the device that you
a wellness device,
which you shared with me last time we caught up. So is that a network marketing type?
It is
business.
So but what I love about it, rather than just selling a supplement, it's an actual medical device. So it's actual tangible that works well for business to business as well than end users. Yeah. So I really enjoy the impact that has. And rather than taking this pill or that pill, it's the only device on the market.
Yeah. Cool. I like that. Yeah. I mean, especially after COVID-19, there's a huge discussion happening in the world about wellness, and it's really interesting to see mainstream media start to or be more and more vocal about opposing what we term as wellness, which is things that aren't backed by pharmaceutical science, but people just through their experiences share that it's made a huge difference or whatever else. So I think, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think it's an interesting conversation that's being had in the world at the moment about, trying to make us as humans trying to make everything so certain, with science, but
also having to rely on seeing a doctor or pharmaceuticals. I'm a big fan of self-empowerment when it comes to our own health and well-being. And I'm certainly not negating the need for doctors and the need for medication. I think that's a part, but it's holistic. And I think we need to also, and I think the world's almost waking up to this, to be able to self-empower ourselves with our own wellness journey and make our own choices. Yeah. And what I love about Healy and this device is it's that self-empowerment. You can self-administer that. You're not relying on a health professional to give you that service. Yeah. And it's the same as mindfulness too. Yeah. You can do mindfulness anywhere. It's that self-empowerment, not relying on taking a medication to get that same result.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, Dr. Joe Dispenza, one of his books, You Are the Placebo. The placebo effect is a known scientific thing. Ultimately, what that is the power of the mind and energy. So, I think if you're listening to this and you're closed off to that kind of thing, there is so much unknown. There is more unknown than there is known in the world. So let's kind of play in that field a little bit and let it be okay. Yeah. Let it be okay for things to be unknown. Let it be okay for people to be able to heal themselves through non-mainstream methods.
Exactly. And it's not about choosing A or B.
No.
It's holistic. Yeah. There's a space and room for both.
Yeah.
And in mental health, because I've done a lot in the mental health field, like I've studied, I'm doing a master's in mental health right now, is there's a place for psychology, there's a place for counsellors, but there's also a place for us to self-empower ourselves for our own mental well-being. I think the world is changing for more 360-degree approaches 100%.
Yeah. I didn't know you were studying a master's.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
Yeah.
On top of everything. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really a conversation also of free speech and the ability for us to be able to explore things and talk about them freely, and for that not to be, shunned or people shunned for being open to talk about things, because, a big passion of mine and is psychedelics, which I talk about now more than I ever have before. And there's a big risk that there's a risk whatever you do that people are going to judge you and put you in a box in a certain way. But, people having the courage to go, hey, actually this sort of stuff's helped me change my life. I got through depression because of this, has led to clinical trials with the use of MDMA and psilocybin mushrooms. So, I think it's just...
lived experience is everything, right?
Yeah.
And I always I never guarantee that anything's going to work for other people, but I certainly talk about what's helped me.
Yeah.
And the reason I came across Healy was, cognitive behavior therapy and other strategies for my anxiety worked to an extent, right? But it wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
And the Healy device came into my life, and they have specific frequencies that you deliver through electrodes for anxiety. And within 3 sessions, the 20% missing from my anxiety that was still there was gone. Like that. So it was like the missing piece. It wasn't all or nothing.
Yeah.
But for me, it was the missing piece, and I've never had an anxiety symptom since. And it's been since November last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge. And we're in June.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow. That's awesome.
And I live with anxiety every day.
Prior to that?
Yeah.
Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I speak from a place of have an open mind.
Yeah.
Give things a go to see if it's going to work for you or
exactly. Not. Nothing's going to work for everyone.
Exactly.
So, be afraid to try different things and be prepared for some of them to fail.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Just like life.
Just like life.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, a big part of what I wanted to spread through this podcast is also helping people understand that success isn't necessarily what we're all conditioned to believe it is, and that it's kind of a personal thing. So, how do you define success?
Yeah, see, this is the thing. I think our version of success changes as we change.
Yeah.
What I thought success looks like is very different 10 years ago, 20 years ago, as an 18-year-old or as a 28-year-old. So don't get, I guess, narrowed tunnel vision, and that's what success is, and that's the only version of success. There are so many different versions of success, and I've had probably a dozen different versions of what success looks like as my life and my journey goes on. And I think right now I feel very successful. But if you told 18-year-old me that was successful, I would have been, no, not a chance, right?
Yeah.
I think it's ever flowing, the version of success.
Sure.
And for me, success is having really great people around me, and there's not a number to that. It's not like I have to have 10 close friends or those like SMART goals, specific and measurable, but like it used to be, right?
Yeah.
Like I just don't have those parameters of X dollars in the bank or things. It's more the vibe and the feeling of every day and who I am being every day. It's more internal measures of success than external measures of success these days.
Yeah, I feel that. For sure. And just to finish up what's been a really amazing conversation, what do you find most interesting about yourself?
Oh, that's a good question.
Can I tell you the background to that question before you answer?
Yes, please do.
Okay. I was
left field.
All right, so I was on Tinder, and that's how all good stories start. So I was on Tinder, and I ended up meeting up with a girl. I was at a point where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put myself out there. I'm just going to like as soon as we matched, we're like, you know what? Hey, let's catch up for coffee and see if we vibe, right? Because I just wanted to find connection with people, like on the same wavelength. So I went to a coffee and like really nice person, but just not on the same wavelength. And to be blunt, I was quite bored, right? And I really don't mean that in an offensive way at all, but I was just bored by the conversation or
just because you weren't on the same wavelength. Doesn't mean she's a boring person.
No, exactly. We weren't aligned in any way. And so then I was like, okay, rather than just jump straight to coffee, I need to think about something that's going to help me understand whether someone is on the same vibe as me before we catch up. And so I came up with that question.
I like it.
So
and
that's
tell me an example of someone from Tinder you've used it on and it's worked well.
I don't actually think I really ever caught up with anyone after that because it was just like, whatever, it's just Tinder. But it definitely framed conversations in a way which was like, you know, okay, well, I'm here to get to know you. I don't really care about anything else or what's going on or sex or whatever. I just want to like get to know people.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good question to open that conversation and yeah.
It's a great question.
So, yeah.
Tough one to answer, but right? Where do I start? I think something that is something that I think is a misconception in who I am is I want the best for everyone and I want to inspire and lead people to get the most out of their lives and live through example that don't be afraid to take chances. And something about me is I always want to live full out. I want to leave it all on the field. I will not regret anything that I've given a go, but I will regret things that I don't do.
Yeah.
So I'm a very, very proactive, productive person.
So that's what you find most interesting about yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that.
I will try anything once.
Yeah. Same. Yep. Absolutely anything.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it there.
Yeah. Let's just leave that open-ended. But,
yeah.
You know, I just want to encourage by living that way for others to do the same, leading by example.
Yeah. Beautiful. What a way to end. I've really enjoyed. Yeah. Thank you so much for being my first guest in my home studio.
I love it.
I've really enjoyed the wine and our chat. So I'll include all your details on the outro. And thanks so much for listening, everyone, or watching if you're watching this on YouTube.
Thanks, everyone. It's
Thanks,
amazing
Tracey.
to be here. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks for having us. Well, that's it for episode 4 of the Alex Waters Show, listeners. Tracey was just a fantastic person to have on. I really, really enjoyed that conversation. And yeah, as always, you can catch me on Instagram at Alexander Waters. If you just search Tracey Jewel, Jewel on Instagram, she'll come up. She's got a blue tick, so she'll be right up there on your search. And as always, you can give me any feedback. I'd love to hear what you got from this episode and what stood out to you. And if it resonates with you, please feel free to share it. Share it with a couple of friends. That's how these sorts of things grow, and your audience, my audience, will grow. The community will grow. So yeah, can't wait to catch up with you again next week on the Alex Waters Show.